A perfect marriage shattered by betrayal, or was it something far darker? A husband's lies, a best friend's secrets, and a discovery that changes everything. This is a story where truth is stranger than fiction. Welcome to the True Crime Studio, where we uncover the hidden and the shocking. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more gripping stories you won't want to miss.
The silver anniversary band felt heavy in Caroline's coat pocket as she navigated through the bustling streets of downtown Chicago. 15 years of marriage wrapped in burgundy velvet, waiting to surprise Michael at his office. The spring air carried a hint of warmth, matching her excitement about their upcoming anniversary celebration. At 39, Caroline had mastered the art of balancing her successful career as a financial consultant with being the supportive wife everyone admired. The elevator ride to the 23rd floor of Preston & Associates felt longer than usual. Caroline checked her reflection in the mirrored walls, smoothing her honey blonde hair and adjusting her cream blazer. The security guard had waved her through with a familiar smile. After all, she'd been visiting Michael's law firm for over a decade. "Mrs. Roberts." Michelle, Michael's secretary, jumped slightly at her approach. "I wasn't expecting you today." Something in her tone made Caroline pause, but she dismissed the warning bell in her mind. "Just surprising Michael for our anniversary." Caroline smiled, already walking past the desk. "Is he in a meeting?" "Wait, Mrs. Roberts, you can't—" But Caroline had already pushed open the heavy wooden door to Michael's office. The scene before her crystallized in slow motion. Michael pressed against his desk, his blue tie askew with Lisa's arms wrapped around his neck. Their lips broke apart at the sound of the door, and 3 pairs of eyes locked in a moment that would forever divide Caroline's life into before and after. "Caroline." Michael's voice cracked as he stumbled backward, his face draining of color. Lisa, her best friend since college, the godmother to their children, the woman who had helped plan their wedding, stood frozen, lipstick smeared across her mouth. The velvet box slipped from Caroline's numb fingers, hitting the carpeted floor with a soft thud that echoed like thunder in the silence. 15 years of trust shattered in 15 seconds. "Caroline, please." Lisa reached out, her designer bracelet catching the afternoon light. The same bracelet Caroline had given her for her 41st birthday just 2 months ago. "We can explain." "Explain?" The word tasted like acid in Caroline's mouth. Her mind raced through 1,000 memories, family vacations together, Sunday brunches, the way Michael and Lisa had always shared inside jokes. How long had she been playing the fool in her own life story? Michael moved toward her, his face contorted with guilt. "Honey, this isn't—" "Don't." Caroline held up her hand, surprised by how steady it was. "Don't you dare say this isn't what it looks like." The calm in her voice scared her more than any scream could have. She turned and walked out, her heels clicking against the marble floors with mechanical precision. Michelle avoided her eyes as she passed. The elevator doors closed on the sound of Michael calling her name, and Caroline pressed her forehead against the cool mirror, watching her reflection fracture into 1,000 pieces. The drive home passed in a blur. Caroline found herself sitting in her parked car in front of their Victorian house in Lincoln Park, the engine still running. The house they'd bought 10 years ago, with its wraparound porch where they'd spent countless summer evenings with friends, with Lisa and her husband David. David, who was probably as clueless as she had been. Her phone buzzed incessantly. 17 missed calls from Michael, 23 text messages, 5 voicemails. 1 text from Lisa. "Please let me explain. It's not what you think. There's so much you don't know." Caroline laughed, a hollow sound that echoed in the empty car. What she didn't know, she'd spent 15 years building a life with Michael, believing they were different from other couples who grew apart. They'd weathered his long hours at the firm, the loss of her father to cancer 3 years ago, the challenges of raising their 2 children. Through it all, they'd remained strong, or so she'd thought. Inside the house, Caroline moved through the rooms like a ghost. Family photos lined the walls. Their wedding day, beach vacations, Christmas mornings. Lisa was in so many of them, her arm around Caroline's shoulders, both of them smiling at the camera. Had there been signs she'd missed? Moments when a touch lingered too long, glances that held more meaning than friendship should allow? The house phone rang, startling her from her thoughts. Caroline almost ignored it, but something made her pick up the receiver. Mrs. Caroline. Roberts? An unfamiliar voice, deep and formal. You don't know me, but I have information about your husband and Lisa Bennett that you need to hear. What you saw today, it's only the surface of a much deeper deception. Caroline's hand tightened on the phone. Who is this? Someone who wants you to know the truth. Check your mailbox, but be careful who you trust with what you find, including your husband's new friend, Daniel Crawford. He's not the ally he'll pretend to be. The line went dead before she could respond. Caroline stood frozen, the dial tone humming in her ear. Daniel Crawford. She'd never heard the name before, but something about it sent a chill down her spine. Walking to the mailbox felt like moving through water. Inside, she found a single envelope. No return address, no postmark. Her hands trembled as she opened it, pulling out a photograph that made her blood run cold. It showed Michael and Lisa, but not from today. This photo was clearly 20 years old, and they weren't alone. 3 other people were with them, their faces serious, standing in front of what looked like a cabin. On the back, written in neat block letters, "The truth costs more than just a marriage. June 15th, 2004. Ask them about Rachel." Rachel. The name hung in the air like smoke, unfamiliar yet somehow significant. Caroline sank onto the porch steps, clutching the photograph as the spring breeze carried the sound of children playing in nearby yards. Her own children would be home from school soon, expecting their world to be the same as when they left it this morning, but nothing would ever be the same again. As Caroline stared at the old photograph, one thought crystallized in her mind. She had a choice to make. She could either fall apart, or she could find out exactly what kind of lies her perfect life had been built on. The sound of a car pulling into the driveway made her quickly tuck the photograph into her pocket. Michael's BMW came to a stop, and he emerged, his face haunted. Behind him, another car parked at the curb, Lisa's silver Lexus. Caroline stood, straightening her spine. The time for tears would come later. Right now she needed answers, and she had a feeling she was about to discover that her husband's infidelity was just the beginning of a much darker story. The silence in the living room felt like a physical presence, heavy and suffocating. Caroline sat in her favorite armchair, the mysterious photograph burning a hole in her pocket, while Michael and Lisa occupied opposite ends of the sofa. The perfect triangle of betrayal, she thought bitterly. Start talking. Caroline's voice cut through the tension. And I suggest you begin with Rachel. The effect was immediate. Michael's head snapped up, his face draining of color, while Lisa's sharp intake of breath confirmed Caroline's suspicion that this name held significance. The two exchanged a quick glance that spoke volumes. How do you know that name? Michael's question came out barely above a whisper. That's not how this works, Caroline replied, steel entering her voice. I ask the questions. You provide honest answers, for once. Lisa leaned forward, her perfectly manicured hands clasped so tightly her knuckles turned white. Caroline, what happened today at the office? Like, it wasn't just a simple affair. There's so much more. Then explain it to me, Caroline interrupted. Explain why my husband and my best friend would betray me. Explain who Rachel is, and why. You both look like you've seen a ghost. Michael stood abruptly, pacing the room like a caged animal. We can't. It's not just our secret to tell. There are people. Agreements were made. Agreements? Caroline pulled out the photograph and tossed it onto the coffee table. Like the ones made in this picture. The reaction was explosive. Lisa gasped, covering her mouth with trembling hands while Michael snatched up the photo as if it might burst into flames. Where did you get this? It seems I'm not the only one interested in your past. Caroline watched their reactions carefully. Someone wants the truth to come out. They called me right after I left your office. Who called you? Michael demanded, his lawyer persona emerging. What exactly did they say? They mentioned someone named Daniel Crawford. Caroline noticed how both Michael and Lisa tensed at the name. Ring any bells? Lisa shot to her feet. We need to go, now. Michael, we can't do this here. You're not going anywhere. Caroline's tone brooked no argument. Not until I understand what's really going on. 20 years ago, something happened at that cabin. Something involving Rachel and Daniel Crawford. I deserve to know the truth. Michael sank back onto the sofa, looking suddenly older than his 42 years. You don't understand what you're asking, Caroline. Some truths are better left buried. Like your affair? The words tasted bitter on her tongue. How long has that been going on? 6 months, Lisa admitted quietly. But it's not what you think. We never meant to hurt me? Caroline laughed humorlessly. Funny how betrayal always comes with that excuse. The doorbell rang, startling all three of them. Through the frosted glass, Caroline could make out a tall figure on their porch. Michael moved faster than she'd ever seen him, practically running to the window. One look outside, and his face turned ashen. Back door, now. He grabbed Lisa's arm. He's found us. Who's found you? Caroline demanded. But Michael was already pushing Lisa toward the kitchen. The doorbell rang again, more insistent this time. Caroline, don't open that door, Michael pleaded. Whatever he tells you, don't trust him. He's not. The sound of breaking glass from the kitchen interrupted him. Lisa screamed. Caroline ran toward the sound, only to find a brick on their kitchen floor, wrapped in a piece of paper. With trembling fingers, she unwrapped it, revealing a newspaper clipping from 20 years ago. Local college student still missing after Lake House tragedy. The article featured a young woman's photo. Beautiful, smiling, full of life. Rachel Anderson, age 21. Last seen at a private cabin near Lake Michigan. The same cabin from the photograph. Oh God, Lisa whispered, her face pale. He's going to tell her everything. The doorbell rang a third time. Caroline looked between Michael and Lisa, their faces masks of terror, then at the newspaper clipping in her hands. Making her decision, she walked to the front door and opened it. A man in his mid-40s stood on her porch, impeccably dressed, in a charcoal suit. His silver-streaked dark hair and patrician features gave him an air of authority, but it was his eyes that caught Caroline's attention, deep brown, and filled with an intensity that made her step back involuntarily. Mrs. Roberts, he smiled, though it didn't reach his eyes. I'm Daniel Crawford. I believe we need to talk about what really happened to my sister Rachel. Behind her, Caroline heard Michael's sharp intake of breath. The pieces were starting to fall into place, forming a picture far darker than a simple affair. Come in, Mr. Crawford. Caroline stepped aside, ignoring Michael's protests. I think it's time everyone told the truth. Daniel entered, his presence filling the room like a gathering storm. He nodded curtly to Michael and Lisa, who had moved closer together, their earlier intimacy forgotten in the face of this new threat. 20 years is a long time to keep a secret. Daniel's voice was smooth, controlled. Especially one that weighs so heavily on the conscience. Isn't that right, Michael? Lisa? You have no right to come here. Michael stepped forward, positioning himself between Daniel and Lisa. We had an agreement. Agreements become void when trust is broken, Daniel replied coldly. Just ask your wife about trust, Michael. Or perhaps Lisa can explain why she's been helping you maintain this charade all these years. Caroline's head spun with questions. What exactly happened to Rachel? That's what I've spent 20 years trying to prove. Daniel turned to her, his expression softening slightly. Your husband, Lisa, and their friends told the police it was an accident, that Rachel was drunk, went swimming in the lake at night and drowned. But there was no body, Mrs. Roberts. No real evidence. Just their word and a convenient story. It was an accident. Lisa's voice cracked. We never meant for any of it to happen. Then why hide the truth for 20 years? Daniel's question hung in the air like smoke. Why continue to protect each other, even to the point of destroying your own marriages? Caroline's mind raced, connecting dots she hadn't even known existed. The affair. It wasn't really an affair, was it? You were meeting to discuss this, because someone was threatening to expose what happened that night. Michael closed his eyes, defeat written across his features. We thought we could handle it ourselves. When the letter started coming 6 months ago, Lisa and I began meeting in secret. We needed to figure out who was trying to blackmail us, what they knew. And your solution was to let me believe you were having an affair? Caroline's voice rose with incredulity. Rather than tell me the truth about what happened 20 years ago? The truth? Daniel's laugh was cold. They can't even admit the truth to themselves, Mrs. Roberts, but I have proof now. Proof that what happened to Rachel was no accident, and your husband and his friends are going to finally face the consequences of their actions. The sound of police sirens in the distance grew louder. Daniel smiled, a predator's smile that sent chills down Caroline's spine. That would be the detective I contacted this morning, he said calmly. I believe he'll be very interested in the new evidence I've uncovered. Evidence that suggests Rachel Anderson didn't drown that night. Evidence that suggests something far more sinister. As red and blue lights began to flash through the windows, Caroline looked at her husband, this man she thought she knew so well, and saw a stranger. The affair had been a smokescreen, hiding something far worse. And now, as police cars pulled up outside their house, she realized her perfect life hadn't just been built on lies. It had been built on a foundation of buried secrets that were finally clawing their way to the surface. The police station's interrogation room felt colder than it should for a spring evening. Caroline sat alone, her fingers wrapped around a paper cup of lukewarm coffee, while through the window she could see Michael in another room, speaking with detectives. 3 hours had passed since they'd all been brought in for questioning. Detective Reeves, a sharp-eyed woman in her 50s, entered the room carrying a thick file. Mrs. Roberts, thank you for your patience. We've been reviewing the Rachel Anderson case files from 20 years ago, and your husband's statement from that night raises some interesting questions. I'm still trying to understand it myself, Caroline admitted, watching as the detective spread old photographs across the table. Crime scene photos from the cabin, pictures of a younger Michael, Lisa, and 3 other people she didn't recognize, all looking scared and defensive. According to the original report, Reeves continued, your husband, Lisa Bennett, Christopher Wells, Amanda Torres, and Benjamin Parker were the last people to see Rachel Anderson alive. They claimed she went swimming after drinking at a party. The lake was searched for weeks, but no body was ever found. Caroline's attention caught on one detail. You mentioned 3 other names. Where are they now? That's where things get interesting. Reeves pulled out 3 more recent photographs. Christopher Wells died in a car accident 10 years ago. Amanda Torres disappeared 5 years ago. Her case is still open. And Benjamin Parker. She paused meaningfully. He committed suicide 3 months ago, shortly after receiving an anonymous letter. The timing clicked in Caroline's mind. 3 months ago. That's when Michael and Lisa started meeting secretly. Exactly. Reeves leaned forward. Mrs. Roberts, we believe someone has been systematically targeting everyone involved in Rachel's disappearance. Daniel Crawford provided us with copies of threatening letters sent to each person over the past year. But here's what's peculiar. The letters didn't demand money. They demanded confessions. A knock at the door interrupted them. Another detective entered, whispering something to Reeves that made her eyebrows shoot up. She excused herself, quickly, leaving Caroline alone with the scattered photographs and her thoughts. Through the window, she could see Lisa being led to another interrogation room, her perfect composure finally cracking. The sight brought no satisfaction to Caroline, only a deep, aching sadness for all the lies that had poisoned their relationships. Her cell phone buzzed in her purse, a text from an unknown number. Ask about the necklace, some secrets don't stay buried in dark waters. Before she could process this new cryptic message, Detective Reeves returned, her expression grave. Mrs. Roberts, we've just received some disturbing information. Amanda Torres's body was found this morning in Lake Michigan near the original cabin site. Initial evidence suggests she's been dead for several years. Caroline felt the room spin slightly. Was she murdered? Yes, and there's more. The forensics team found traces of Rachel Anderson's DNA in the cabin's foundation. We believe both women were killed there years apart. The door burst open as Michael's lawyer, Richard Preston, strode in. This interview is over. My client's wife is leaving now. Actually, Caroline stood slowly. I'm staying. And I'm not sure I'm still your client's wife. She turned to Detective Reeves. There's something else you should know. I received another text just now about a necklace in dark waters. The effect on Preston was immediate. He reached for his phone, but Reeves was faster, confiscating it as potential evidence. Mr. Preston, I suggest you return to your client. Mrs. Roberts clearly has more to share with us. After Preston left, Caroline pulled out her phone, showing the detective the text. Someone knows more than they're letting on, and I don't think it's just Daniel Crawford. Mrs. Roberts, Reeves said carefully, what do you know about Benjamin Parker's suicide note? Nothing. I didn't even know he existed until today. The detective pulled out a sealed evidence bag containing a handwritten letter. He wrote this before he died. The necklace will prove what we did. I can't live with it anymore. Rachel deserved better, and so did Amanda. Check the Lake House Foundation, under the north corner. God forgive us all. Caroline's hands trembled as she read through the protective plastic. So when they searched the foundation, they found more than just DNA. They found Rachel Anderson's silver necklace embedded in the concrete. And wrapped around it was a USB drive preserved in a waterproof case. The implications hit Caroline like a physical blow. They killed her, and then She couldn't finish the sentence. We believe Rachel was killed the night she disappeared, and her body was hidden in the foundation when the cabin was renovated shortly after. Amanda Torres likely discovered this years later, leading to her own murder. A commotion outside drew their attention. Through the window they could see Lisa had collapsed, sobbing uncontrollably, while Michael stood in his interrogation room, his face buried in his hands. Detective Reeves closed the file. Mrs. Roberts, what I'm about to tell you doesn't leave this room. The USB drive contained video footage from that night. It shows all 5 of them, including your husband and Lisa Bennett, moving something heavy wrapped in a tarp. The timestamp matches the night Rachel disappeared. Caroline fought back nausea. Why? What possible reason could they have had? According to Benjamin Parker's full confession, found after his death, Rachel had discovered something about their wealthy family's business dealings, illegal operations that would have destroyed multiple lives if exposed. They confronted her at the cabin, things got out of hand, and Reeves let the sentence hang. And they've been covering it up ever since. Caroline finished, her voice hollow, living their lives, going to work, attending parties, raising families, all while knowing what they'd done. The guilt ate at them differently, Reeves explained. Parker couldn't take it anymore. Torres tried to expose the truth and paid with her life. The others created a pact of silence, Caroline said, thinking of all the times she'd seen Michael and Lisa whispering together at family gatherings, the inside jokes she'd attributed to their long friendship. But why start meeting again 6 months ago? Because someone else knew the truth, a new voice said from the doorway. Daniel Crawford stood there looking grimmer than before. Someone who waited 20 years to play their final hand. Detective Reeves straightened. Mr. Crawford, this is a closed interview. It's all right, Caroline said, studying Daniel's face. I think it's time we heard the whole truth, starting with why you really came forward now after all these years. Daniel's expression hardened. Because 3 months ago I received a package. Inside was my sister's diary, detailing everything she'd discovered about the family's corruption, and a second USB drive, with footage showing exactly who suggested hiding her body in the foundation. Would you like to know who it was, Mrs. Roberts? Before he could answer, gunshots rang out from somewhere in the station. Screams erupted as officers rushed past the interrogation room. Through the chaos, Caroline heard Detective Reeves's radio crackle. "Officer down. Suspect is armed and heading for interrogation room C." Caroline's blood ran cold as she realized which room that was. Lisa's room. The truth was about to get even darker. Chaos erupted in the police station as officers rushed toward the sound of gunfire. Detective Reeves pushed Caroline and Daniel behind a desk, drawing her weapon. Through the glass partition, Caroline caught a glimpse of a figure in a security guard's uniform moving purposefully through the hallway. "That's not one of our officers," Reeves muttered, her radio crackling with urgent communications. Another shot rang out, closer this time, followed by the sound of breaking glass. Caroline's heart nearly stopped when she heard Lisa's scream from the next room. The figure in the security uniform was heading straight for her. Without thinking, Caroline moved toward the door, but Daniel grabbed her arm. "Don't," he warned. "This is exactly what they want. Chaos, confusion, more deaths to cover up the truth." "Mrs. Roberts, stay down," Reeves ordered, moving toward the door. But before she could reach it, the lights went out, plunging the station into darkness. Emergency lights flickered on, casting eerie shadows across the walls. In the dim red glow, Caroline saw Michael break free from his interrogation room, running toward Lisa's location. The fake security guard turned, raising their weapon. Time seemed to slow as Caroline recognized something in the shooter's stance, in the way they moved. "Amanda?" she whispered in shock. The figure froze for a split second, turning slightly toward Caroline's voice. In that moment, Detective Reeves acted, tackling the shooter to the ground. The gun skittered across the floor as they struggled. When additional officers finally subdued the attacker and the lights flickered back on, Caroline's suspicion was confirmed. Amanda Torres, very much alive despite what the police had found at the lake, stared back at them with wild eyes. "You were supposed to be dead." Lisa's voice shook as she emerged from her room, Michael protectively at her side. "We saw you. You saw what I wanted you to see." Amanda spat, struggling against the officer's grip. "Just like you made everyone see what you wanted them to see 20 years ago. But I'm not the only one who knows the truth anymore, am I, Lisa?" Detective Reeves quickly took charge of the situation, ordering Amanda to be secured in a high-security holding cell. As officers led her away, she called out, "Ask them about the second video. Ask about what really happened after Rachel died." The next hour passed in a blur of statements and security protocols. Caroline found herself in a larger conference room with Michael, Lisa, Daniel, and Detective Reeves. The weight of Amanda's appearance hung heavy in the air. "Let me guess." Daniel broke the tense silence. "Amanda Torres discovered the truth about Rachel years ago, but instead of coming forward, she saw an opportunity. She used her knowledge to manipulate all of you, maybe even helped orchestrate Benjamin Parker's suicide. She contacted me first," Lisa admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. 6 months ago, said she had proof of what we'd done. Not just to Rachel, but everything that came after. The corporate fraud, the cover-ups, the way our families built their empires, unburied secrets. Michael ran his hands through his hair, looking utterly defeated. "We thought if we could find her, convince her to keep quiet, but she always seemed one step ahead. Then Benjamin killed himself, and everything started unraveling. The body they found in the lake," Caroline pieced together. "Amanda planted it to fake her death, to watch how you'd all react, to see if you'd finally break under the pressure." Detective Reeves laid out several evidence bags on the conference table. "We found these in Amanda's car, multiple burner phones, surveillance photos of all of you, and this." She held up a USB drive similar to the one found with Rachel's necklace. "It seems Miss Torres was quite thorough in documenting everything." "Play it," Daniel demanded. "Let's see what other secrets my sister's murderers have been keeping." The detective inserted the drive into a laptop, and grainy footage filled the screen. It showed the cabin from 20 years ago, but not from the night of Rachel's death. This was days later. A younger Michael, Lisa, and Amanda stood arguing with 2 older men Caroline didn't recognize. "That's Richard Preston," Michael said quietly. "And Jonathan Wells, Christopher's father. They helped us cover it up. Made sure the police investigation went nowhere." The video continued, showing Preston handling documents while Wells made phone calls. Money changed hands. The young group looked terrified but compliant. "They blackmailed us," Lisa's voice cracked. "Said they had evidence that would implicate us all in Rachel's death. They used us, used our guilt and fear, to help them hide their own crimes. The corrupt business dealings Rachel had discovered, it went all the way to the top of both families." Daniel leaned forward, his eyes never leaving the screen. "So you didn't just kill my sister. You let her murderers use her death to strengthen their criminal empire. Built your careers on her grave." "We were young, scared," Michael protested weakly. "We thought we had no choice." "There's always a choice," Caroline spoke for the first time in hours. "Just like you had a choice to tell me the truth months ago instead of letting me believe. You were having an affair. Every lie, every cover-up was a choice." Detective Reeves paused the video. "Mr. Crawford, the evidence you provided earlier combined with this new footage and Amanda Torres's arrest gives us enough to move on the bigger players. Richard Preston, the Wells estate, all of it." "It won't bring Rachel back," Daniel said, quietly. "Or erase 20 years of lies." "No," Caroline agreed, looking at her husband. This stranger she'd shared her life with. "But maybe it can stop 20 more years of corruption and death." Lisa suddenly straightened, her face draining of color. "Wait. If Amanda's here, then who sent the latest messages? The texts about the necklace, the warnings?" Before anyone could respond, Caroline's phone buzzed with a new message. The number was blocked, but the text was clear. "Final piece of the puzzle tomorrow. Noon. The cabin. Come alone, or Preston goes public with everything, including what really happened to Rachel Anderson's body after they moved it from the foundation. Some secrets are worth killing for. Just ask your husband what they did with the real evidence." The room fell silent as Caroline showed them the message. Michael looked like he might be sick. Detective Reeves immediately began coordinating with her team, but Caroline barely heard them. Her eyes were fixed on her husband, seeing the guilt and fear warring on his face. "Michael," she said softly, dangerously, "what haven't you told us?" The answer, she knew, would change everything. Again. The old cabin looked smaller than in the photographs, its weathered walls bearing 20 years of secrets. Caroline stood at the edge of the property line, watching the morning mist roll. Off Lake Michigan. Despite Detective Reeves's protests, she had come alone, or at least appeared to be alone. The police surveillance team was hidden in the surrounding woods waiting. The burner phone they'd given her showed 11:57 a.m. 3 minutes until the meeting that would finally reveal the last piece of this twisted puzzle. Michael's confession the night before still echoed in her mind, each word another nail in the coffin of their marriage. "We didn't just hide Rachel's body in the foundation," he had admitted, broken and hollow-eyed in the interrogation room. "When the investigation started getting too close, Preston ordered us to move it. But Rachel, she wasn't completely gone. The cold water had preserved enough to prove what we'd done." The cabin door creaked open, pulling Caroline from the memory. Richard Preston himself stood in the doorway, his expensive suit incongruous against the rustic backdrop. The man who had orchestrated 20 years of cover-ups and corruption looked oddly diminished in the harsh daylight. "Mrs. Roberts," he called out, "I assume you're wearing a wire. It doesn't matter anymore. Some stories need to be told in full." Caroline approached cautiously, her hand brushing against the recording device hidden beneath her jacket. "You were the one sending the messages, not Amanda." "Clever girl." Preston's smile held no warmth. Amanda Torres was a useful distraction. Her obsession with exposing the truth made her the perfect scapegoat, but she never knew the whole story. Inside the cabin, Caroline's eyes adjusted to the dim light. A laptop sat open on a dusty table, displaying what looked like old security footage. Preston gestured for her to sit. 20 years ago, he began. Rachel Anderson discovered something that could have destroyed not just the Wells and Preston families, but half of Chicago's elite. Money laundering, fraud, political bribes, decades of careful work building our empires. She was going to expose everything. So you had her killed? No. Preston's expression darkened. Your husband and his friends did that all on their own. A confrontation that got out of hand. But afterward, when they came to me, panicked and covered in blood, I saw an opportunity. He pressed play on the laptop. The footage showed the cabin's interior, date-stamped 3 days after Rachel's death. Young Michael, Lisa, and the others were moving something wrapped in plastic from the foundation. Preston's voice continued over the silent video. I made them an offer. We would protect them from prosecution, give them careers, wealth, everything they dreamed of. In exchange, they became our puppets. Every illegal document they notarized, every corrupt deal they facilitated, all while Rachel's body remained our insurance policy. Where did you move her? Caroline asked, though she dreaded the answer. The Lake House Foundation was just the beginning. Over the years, we moved her remains multiple times, always keeping evidence in different locations. Insurance, see? As long as everyone had something to lose, no one could talk. A noise from outside made them both turn. Through the window, Caroline saw Daniel Crawford emerge from the tree line, a gun trained steadily on the cabin. Right on time, Preston smiled, the grieving brother, finally putting the pieces together. Did you really think I didn't know about the surveillance team, Mrs. Roberts? That I didn't plan for this moment? The door burst open as Daniel entered, his face a mask of cold fury. You're going to tell me where my sister is. All of her. Every piece you monsters scattered to protect yourselves. Daniel. Caroline started to rise, but Preston's next words froze her in place. She's here, he said simply. Under our feet. The foundation you're standing on? It's not the original. We rebuilt it 5 years ago, and this time we made sure she'd never be found. Ground-penetrating radar, forensic tests. Nothing will find her now. Daniel's hand tightened on the gun. You're lying. Am I? Check your phone. Mr. Crawford, the video should be arriving right about now. A chime sounded from Daniel's pocket. Still keeping the gun aimed at Preston, he pulled out his phone with his free hand. His face went ashen as he watched whatever had been sent. You recorded it, he whispered. You recorded everything. Every reburial. Every moment of their guilt. 20 years of insurance ready to destroy them all with a single upload. Your sister's death bought me 2 decades of absolute control over Chicago's most powerful families. Caroline's mind raced. Something wasn't adding up. Why tell us this now? Why risk everything after all these years? Preston's laugh was hollow. Because I'm dying, Mrs. Roberts. Stage 4 pancreatic cancer. 3 months to live at best. And I wanted you all to know. Every one of you who thought you could expose the truth, who thought you could unravel my life's work. That I won. Even in death, I won. No. Daniel's voice shook with rage. You didn't. He reached into his jacket with his free hand, pulling out a small device. A red light blinked steadily. Preston's smug expression faltered. What is that? A transmitter. Caroline realized hope blooming in her chest. Everything you just said, it wasn't just being recorded by my wire, was it? Live streaming, Daniel confirmed grimly. To every major news outlet in Chicago. Your confession, the video files, everything. It's all public now. Detective Reeves made sure of that. The sound of sirens filled the air as police vehicles approached the cabin. Preston's face contorted with fury as he lunged for Daniel's gun. A shot rang out, then another. Caroline ducked as chaos erupted. When the dust settled, Preston lay bleeding on the cabin floor, Daniel's bullet in his shoulder. Outside, she could hear Detective Reeves coordinating with forensics teams. The foundation would be excavated, properly this time. Rachel would finally be found, finally be laid to rest with dignity. Hours later, Caroline stood watching the sun set over Lake Michigan. Michael and Lisa had been formally charged, along with Preston and several other members of Chicago's elite. Amanda Torres had agreed to testify in exchange for a reduced sentence. The truth was finally fully exposed. Daniel approached, looking exhausted but somehow lighter. The DA thinks they can make a case for premeditated murder against Preston. The videos prove he was orchestrating everything from the beginning, using Rachel's death to build his empire. And Michael? Lisa? Voluntary manslaughter for Rachel's death. Conspiracy charges for everything after. With their cooperation, they might see freedom again someday. Caroline nodded, feeling the weight of her wedding ring on her finger. Slowly, deliberately, she removed it, holding it up to catch the last rays of sunlight. 20 years of lies, she said softly, built on one moment of violence and fear. All those lives destroyed, corrupted, ended. And for what? Money? Power? Fear is the most powerful motivator, Daniel replied. Fear of consequences, fear of truth, fear of losing everything you've built. But secrets don't stay buried forever. Rachel taught me that. Caroline dropped the ring into the lake, watching it disappear beneath the dark waters. Like Rachel, like the truth, it had been submerged for years. But unlike her husband's secrets, this was a weight she could finally let go. What will you do now? Daniel asked. Start over. Find out who I am without the lies. She turned to face him. And you? Make sure Rachel's story is told. All of it. The corruption. The cover-ups. People need to know what really happened here. As they walked away from the cabin, Caroline felt something shift inside her. The pain wasn't gone, might never fully heal. But with each step, she was moving toward something new. Something true. Behind them, forensics teams began their work, finally unearthing the secrets buried in blood and concrete. Rachel Anderson would have justice at last.
This story reminds us that the truth, no matter how deeply buried, always finds its way to the surface. Caroline's journey teaches us the strength it takes to face betrayal, uncover the truth, and rebuild a life from the ashes of deception. If this story moved you, please like, subscribe, and hit the bell for more captivating tales from the True Crime Studio. Thank you for watching, and may your days be filled with honesty, strength, and hope. See you in the next story.